So we are live on Facebook with our 20th first edition of webinar in this series in the COVID times. Today our topic is skin ailments in the COVID times. We have around 6 lakh people on our Facebook page and almost 1,000 of our employees who are our audience today. So skin disorders or dermatology, as we doctors call it, has seen a sea change in the last 25 years. In my MBBS final year, whatever postings I did in the skin, it was more going into the skin, and the average time we took to diagnose a patient was not more than 5 minutes. It was always a spot case in the exam also. But from a science of being skin diseases and sexually transmitted disorders, skin dermatology has forayed into aesthetics, into cosmetology, into trichology, and simple OPD has diversified into lasers and many other procedures. जहां पे हम ये कहते थे कि गोलियों और ऑइंटमेंट से काम चल जाता है, वहां आज बायोलॉजिकल्स और पता नहीं कौन कौन सी इन्फ्यूजन्स हैं जो कि स्किन डिजीजेस के लिए यूज की जाती हैं। बट लॉकडाउन ने सब चेंज कर दिया। ओपीडी में नहीं जा सकते, डर लगता है ओपीडी जाने में। ओपीडी तो बंद कर दी गई बहुत सारे अस्पतालों में। तो हम डॉक्टर को इसी तरह, जैसे हम इन 3 डॉक्टर्स को आज देख रहे हैं, हम टेली कंसल्टेशंस करने लग गए। जिन लोगों को क्रॉनिक एलिमेंट्स थी, सोरियासिस पेशेंट्स को, ल्यूपस पेशेंट्स को, जिनको उनको या तो मेडिसिन मिली नहीं या उन्होंने खुद ही डिसाइड कर लिया कि मेडिसिन नहीं खरीदनी, एंड दैट लेड टू इंटरप्शन ऑफ मेडिकेशंस। जिन लोगों को एक्यूट स्किन एलिमेंट्स थी, आई नो वन फ्रेंड ऑफ माइन, उनको हर्पिस जोस्टर हो गया, उनको एक डॉक्टर तक पहुंचने में इतनी तकलीफ में वो पहुंच ही नहीं पा रहे थे, हॉस्पिटल इमरजेंसी उनको एंटरटेन ही नहीं कर रही थी। और उसके बाद और बहुत सारे सवाल, मेरे तो प्रोसीजर्स चल रहे थे, मैं क्या करूं, मेरे होम इन्फ्यूजन्स चल रहे थे, मेरे इन्फ्यूजन्स चल रहे थे, मैं क्या करूं, मुझे डिसइंफेक्टेंट से एलर्जी हो रही है, सैनिटाइजर्स बहुत यूज कर रहे हैं, डिसइंफेक्टेंट्स बहुत यूज कर रहे हैं। तो इन सारे क्वेश्चंस के मध्य में हमने ये सोचा तो चलिए इस बार स्किन एलिमेंट्स पे देश भर में से अपने पैनलिस्ट को लेके आते हैं। तो लेट मी इंट्रोड्यूस आवर पैनलिस्ट टुडे फ्रॉम द हॉटेस्ट स्पॉट ऑफ कोविड, मुंबई। आई हैव डॉक्टर सुशील टहलियानी विद मी।
Hello.
Hi, sir. He has over 35 years of experience in dermatology, lasers and aesthetic procedure. He did his graduation from State GS Medical College and his post-graduation MD from the prestigious KEM Hospital, Mumbai. He's also a member of IADLV, ACSI, American Academy of Dermatology, European Academy of Dermatovenerology, and reviewer of IGDVL, GCAS, and IJD. He's a faculty member at various dermatology surgery conferences and workshops, has been awarded the prestigious Dr. B.C. Roy's Birth Anniversary Award and written chapters in ACSI and IDLIT textbooks in a book on nail diseases. His area of interest are clinical dermatology, lasers, and office-based surgeries. I welcome you, Dr. Teliani.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind words.
I also have from exactly other side of the country, Kolkata, West Bengal, Dr. Abhishek Dey, who is attending this webinar from the close confines of his car because he's stuck in a traffic. So Dr. Abhishek Dey is a unique combination of dermatologist, dermatosurgeon, laser surgeon, trichologist, and aesthetic consultant. He did his MBBS from Calcutta Medical College and later completed his post-graduation from Kasturba Medical College, Manipal. He has had exposure in different countries like Singapore, Thailand, Europe, Dubai, and USA, and finally came back to Kolkata to start his practice. He is currently the Associate Professor for Calcutta National Medical College and was also a previously teaching faculty in IPGMER SSKM Hospital in Kolkata. He has to his credit more than 67 research papers, more than 50 theses, and has authorship in 21 books. His list of honors is a bit lengthy, but I'll just quickly go through them. Professor Panja Award for Excellence in Dermatology, Rising Star Award in World Congress for Dermatology, Vishnu Priya Devi Award from IJDVL, Best Article Award in IJD, National Skin Observer Fellowship, American Academy Dermatology Scholarship in Miami, International Society for Dermatology Mentorship and Scholarship, National Award Professor B.N. Banerjee Medal for Best Original Research, and ILDS International Scholarship. He's the current Associate Editor of Indian Journal of Dermatology, Assistant Editor GCAS, and Reviewer and Editorial Board of many other national and international dermatology journals. He's member of many national and international dermatology associations and is the first convener of Academy of Associate Cutaneous Surgeons of India and a pivotal member of National Special Interest Group on Laser Anesthetics and Trichology. I welcome you, Dr. Abhishek. Again, coming back to Mumbai, we have the most glamorous Dr. Soma Sarkar, right? She's again an MBBS from Turna Medical College, Navi Mumbai, and an MD from DY Patical Educational Enterprises, Navi Mumbai. She's the founder director at Dr. Soma's Aesthetic Clinical and Academy, and also works with the Skin and Mahatma Gandhi Seva Mandir and BTS Lions Charitable Clinic. She's also member of the Indian Association of Dermatologists, Venerologists, Leprologists, associate member. She's the mascot for Spin Control for clinical trials. She's also empaneled with IDEVA, empaneled dermatologist for Ranbaxy training, empaneled with Merck, Marico, and many other such organizations. I welcome Dr. Soma also. So let's jump to our questions. And my first question is to our senior most, Dr. Telyani. Sir, what has changed for people with skin ailments in the COVID times? Can you just give us a small overview on how things are happening in COVID times for people with various skin ailments?
Yeah, a couple of things. One is the pattern of some diseases has changed. Like you mentioned, there are people who are at home working in the kitchen without maids, sweating it out. So you see a lot of flexural dermatosis, including fungal infections. They have been overusing sanitizers. So you see a lot of hand eczemas because of the sanitizers and soaps. And the second thing that has changed is many of their chronic ailments, treatments have got interrupted, like you said. So they were doing well with certain medicines, and the medicines had to be discontinued because they could not be in touch with the doctors and hospitals. And the diseases which were under control started worsening, for example, psoriasis. Other thing is that sometimes out of the medicines that we used to give for conditions like psoriasis and connective tissue diseases, which were on paper labeled immunosuppressive, so some of the patients stop the treatment thinking that if they take such medicines which are immunosuppressive, they'll be more prone to COVID, or if they get COVID, COVID will get very severe. So some of them on their own stopped their medicines, which led to the diseases getting worsened. And lastly, some of them had the fright of leaving their houses, thinking that the moment they step out, they'll get a disease. So they started resorting to teleconsultation, and these are some of the things that I see which have happened to the skin in the corona time.
Adding to that, sir, do you think that the presentation of some diseases has changed in the COVID times?
Actually, not very much, if you ask me. But when I do teleconsultations, two cases are picked up where they asked me whether there was a drug rash. There were two people who were taking medicines on being recommended by the press that they should take hydroxychloroquine, and they thought that would save them from COVID, and they thought they had developed a rash because of hydroxychloroquine. And it was actually a skin lesion because of corona, a skin lesion of COVID infection that they sent to me images for, and I asked them to go for an investigation, and they were picked up as cases of COVID. But otherwise, I think more or less the same things, only they are not being managed ideally as we could manage earlier.
Absolutely, sir. I can't agree more. And this is a news to me that a skin ailment or a rash presented as a corona infection, because
Yes.
largely what we hear is it is going to be a sore throat or a fever or a cough. And now they said, okay, loss of smell and taste. And then they say, okay, diarrhea bhi include kar lo. But this I also recently read. I'm pleasantly surprised that you could even see and diagnose that case given the limitations. So, but sir, you mentioned that diseases like psoriasis are being impacted because of the discontinuation. Could you throw some light whether people, what is your advice for people, and what is the harmful effects of doing this?
Actually, psoriasis is a multi-system disease. So at least 20% of patients have a moderate to severe involvement of the skin. Some of them also have joint involvement, and they may also have metabolic syndrome, and untreated psoriasis can have a negative effect on the cardiovascular system. So keeping all this in mind, we should manage the psoriasis well in spite of corona infection being around us, because there were many other infections around us, and we could manage our patients with immunosuppressive drugs if we were careful. A person who is not handling a corona case as a doctor, a person who does not have a corona case in the family or close contacts, can safely continue the medicines And those who need it for the first time, they can initiate also, if you take due care. And I think they should not ignore their diseases. As a matter of fact, when you have skin which is disrupted and you have a lot of inflammation because of psoriasis, and if you get corona, the inflammatory cytokine storm might be more likely in your case if you don't manage your psoriasis well.
Absolutely right, sir. Absolutely right.
Yeah.
So let me go to Dr. Soma now. Dr. Soma, sir said that we are trying to manage our patients as best we can, and people are so afraid stepping out of the home. So what has been your experience, that how people with acute or chronic skill ailments are seeking attention? Is there a delay in seeking attention? How that is affecting people? And then in the continuation of that, is telemedicine an alternative to dermatology consultation or not?
Yeah, in this COVID times, I did see a lot of patients coming to me, but when things were severe. So like there were times when I had a patient as a police. I would talk about the police people only. He's on duty all the time, doesn't get time nowadays, especially after the COVID duties. And he had an eczematic rash on his legs. But he did not come to me till the time it actually became infected. There was a secondary infection. He had blisters, he had swelling of the leg, and then he had to sit at home. He was put off the duty. And that is the time when he actually approached me to take the medications. Obviously, we did a teleconsult. Most of my patients, during the initial period, especially during the April and May months, they all were wanting to do only teleconsultations. That's what I've realized, that during those times, they were wanting to do video consult. But the issue was that sometimes in video consult, sometimes network issues are there, pictures are not clear, I cannot palpate any lymph nodes, or I can't do my physical examination, which I want to probably do during these times. We were lacking that. So I had to be on probable diagnosis sometimes, which as a doctor should not be the case. It's not ethical or safe for the patient as well. But what I have done is I have treated the patient with primarily medicines, and try to tell them to see that if we can control the infection, and then probably if I can get them to the clinic. So this has been the scenario during these times. Yes, there were chronic patients who were on treatment, for example, like acne patients. I had a lot of acne patients who were on treatment, and they were on certain procedures as well. So they were due for these procedures, and they had kept calling me. Their acne flared up. I realized also for the fact that obviously everybody started working too much into the kitchen all the time in the heat, doing all the work in the house. Secondly, there was a stress level of not going to work, not meeting people. So the stress was causing a lot of anxiety, and they were having a lot of flare up. So I did see, so most of the time I tried to continue. I avoid adding any of the new medication during this time. So I tried to, mostly if I had to, I had added on a topical applications more than the oral tablet form. Also adding to the fact that, as Dr. Telyani also rightly said, that psoriasis patient, I had a psoriasis patient, a young girl who had a florid psoriasis case, and she was on cyclosporin. And during this period, because the same thing, immunosuppressive drugs, and your immunity will become low and you will have the COVID, the patient stopped the medicines by themselves. And she had a flare up. So now that she's again come back to me, she's again completely gone back to the case where I had started her. So this is what has happened. There was a patient lined up for the other infusions as well. And she came back to me and said that I will not take it until unless the COVID goes away, because we are on immunosuppressive drugs and I don't want to take the risk.
Yeah, patients try to become doctors on their own.
Yeah.
Dr. Abhishek, what has been your experience with the telemedicine and in COVID times?
First of all, the experience, First of all, the experience of telemedicine is very new.
Your voice is not clear. Your voice is not clear.
First of all,
you can settle down. You can settle down.
Okay.
I'll ask Dr. Telyani
Okay, sure.
in the meanwhile. You can settle down. Yeah. So Telyani sir, I sensed were not very comfortable seeing patients on video. I had a question that when we were taught diagnosing a skin disease, you had to use your those glasses also, and had to feel the texture also. So what has been your journey with telemedicine and managing these patients?
The easier things can be managed well through telemedicine, because when they send you a high resolution close-up images of the lesions, more than video consultation, one can get some idea. Then on basis of those pictures, we ask them some leading questions, and take more history, and then we come to a diagnosis. But there are cases where, for example, there's a white spot, and I'm not sure that it's vitiligo or tinea versicolor or it's a
IGS.
Hansen's disease. And I can't diagnose it on basis of an image. So sometimes when the patients insist on, I tell them the old Hindi song, "Jo baat tujh mein hai, teri tasveer mein nahi."
I will
So-
do this next time, sir.
So no, whenever I can help them, I see it. Otherwise, I do the first consultation in the clinic and follow-ups I do on telemedicine. And what has changed in the diseases, you asked me, and I thought it over, and I agree with Dr. Soma that women in the house are under a lot of pressure because there are no meds there to do a lot of work. And that stress can not only aggravate many of the diseases which are known to worsen with stress, but it also causes a lot of cases of neurodermatitis. We have seen a lot of cases which are initiated because of stress, itchy rash on the skin.
I completely
Sir,
agree, sir.
you are saying that women are doing more work. I know so many husbands who are also contributing in all the jhadu pocha and burtan washing.
Soma can
Are-
enlighten us.
You know,
Soma can
I'll-
enlighten us.
I'll tell you one thing, husbands try to be helpers, nothing more than that. And sometimes they do such a shortage of women get more frustrated, you know.
Yeah.
They're
So
very
it's better
clumsy.
it's better that you stay away. When
So-
you
so
they
that
make
means-
more mess.
so
Soma
that means
husband
that
देख रही है.
so that means that the trend is not visible in the males. It is more visible of all these things, the females only as of now.
But today only
yeah.
you know, today only I saw a patient of candidiasis in the axillae and asked him
Yeah.
that this is sweating. He said, yes, I've been mopping the entire house every
Yes.
day.
So I was
Man.
just going to tell that the more fungal infections we are finding more in this during this period. I've seen a lot of cases getting flared up, old in lesions coming back again, and because of this excessive sweating and working.
So, Dr. Day, what has been your experience of managing patients remotely in the COVID times?
So first of all, managing a patient remotely was a new experience for us. I mean, most of us was not doing any teleconsultation before, but it's fine. In fact, I realized this could have been started much earlier, honestly, because so many of our patients come from distant places. Like for Calcutta, we see a lot of patients from Bangladesh, and every time we struggle to give them back to a doctors in their locality. So we get patients from Orissa, Jharkhand, Bihar, all those areas, and at times it is difficult for those remote places those guys to come over us. So we could have done it much earlier. That was a realization. And there are we are studying, we are learning. I mean, it's a little bit slow than normal consultation. So at times little irritating. Otherwise, we're learning the craft. It's more or less for normal sort of infection like tinea and other things. We can manage it pretty well. Of course, there are procedural things which we cannot do. There are other issues which we cannot solve over there. But otherwise, it's for most of the 90% of our problems we can solve over the teleconsultation, and this is a new realization for me. At least, it's a very new realization for sure.
Any limitations which you saw on telemedicine OPDs?
First of all, that our classical teaching was never telemedicine. So we always learn to touch and feel, and all those elements is completely gone. Two-dimensional picture cannot give you the similar effect what we can feel from our patient. And if the patient insists on video consultation, that's even worse, because video resolution is so poor that usually you do not find the requisite amount of things. Photographs are much better, but patients get more satisfaction when they see the patient over videos. So there are a lot of limitation and a lot of medicine we cannot give. We need to know that even with telemedicine, there are typical guidelines like A, B, and category O drug, category X drug. So a lot of things we cannot give over there in telemedicine. So there are limitations for sure, but it could have been a good choices for follow-up for our patients. Even before the COVID days, COVID gave us the learning. We could have learned from these challenges.
Dr. Talyani, sir, you want to add something to this?
So I agree. It's a very useful tool to learn telemedicine, but it can only add on to clinical medicine. It cannot replace it completely. When I see a patient, explain the condition, look into the patient eye to eye, put my arm around the patient, reassure them, that's how the battle won. And you put them at ease. That's one thing I miss in telemedicine. So I will tell the software people in future to make a virtual arm for me, which I can put around the patient and tell them relax.
What has been the challenges of your patients, sir, in telemedicine? These are the challenges of you people. What are the patients' challenges?
Patient's challenges are we treat the entire dermatology, so there would be a young man or a woman with lesions on the genitals. How would they show you? So sometimes they tell me to give them my email ID and they send on my personal mail account so that nobody else has access to it. So there are some areas, and for example, scalp, which is not shaved. How can I see a scalp lesion? How do you know the hair loss from the telemedicine?
Exactly. Like
So
hair fall.
there
Like
are a
hair
lot of
fall
limitations
problems.
there.
It's so difficult. And another thing I would say is, sir, we are doing so much of use of dermatoscopy. Trichoscopy and dermatoscopy is part of our, would say, daily life now. But COVID has really taken that options in general also. We are very reluctant doing dermatoscopy because of the COVID situation now.
No, I do it in my clinic. I put a clean film on the dermatoscope and I discard it. But dermatoscopy, Wood's lamp, there are so many things that you cannot do in telemedicine.
So now, as sir said, that the software has to bring an arm. For you, Dr. Day, it has to add a wood lamp and a dermatoscope also to the telemedicine, right? So let's change our topic
and
from
maybe procedures and lasers and everything.
Yeah, they did a CABG remotely in Ahmedabad. Maybe they'll be able to get all these things also. But let me get to another question, which was very well raised by Dr. Talyani and of course Dr. Soma also, that people who are on chronic disease management, right? We have seen that the journey from ointments and pills to biologicals, and many of the chronic diseases like psoriasis, these are on biologicals, right? So has the prescription of biologicals changed? Because what I have heard from the experts is that you should continue your medicines, and people themselves are becoming doctors in discontinuing and going back to where they started, as Dr. Soma says. But from a doctor's perspective, has the choice of prescription also changed? Dr. Day.
Me, okay. To some extent, yes, because it's also probiologic change is there and antibiologic change is there. I'll explain you. Like we are initially, at the initial part of the COVID infection, we are very reluctant to start a new biologics. We are pretty happy continuing the patients of on biologics where the patient is young, patient doesn't have a diabetes or any other problems. But when the patient is old, we may be doubtful to continue the biologics. A patient has comorbidities, will be doubtful the patient on biologics. And also in starting a new biologics was a dilemma. But now, at least interleukin 17 blockers for psoriasis, we are using a lot. I have started 3 new patients in last couple of months. So we have started using, because more and more data are saying that it's quite safe during this period of time. However, our choice of biology has changed. We are possibly, most of us are not using TNF alpha blocker these days that much, as much we are using for interleukin 17 blocker. But I'll tell you the flip side of it. In a treatment of urticaria, in our third line of treatment of urticaria, once your antihistamine fails, we had 2 choices of drug. One is omalizumab, another is cyclosporine. Now, omalizumab is one drug which is completely safe. It's a non-immunosuppressant during the COVID era. But cyclosporine is not. So our choice to urticaria treatment are going more probiologic than it's going towards cyclosporine. So amongst the immunosuppressants also, we have a lot of choices. Somewhere it may be taking us off from the biologics, at least the initial part of the COVID treatment, but it's not always. More and more data are suggesting that we can safely use biologics even during the COVID era. So we are starting those things. And also in certain therapeutic treatment like urticaria, we are using biologics over conventional immunosuppression because we know that will be much safer.
And what is your advice for the patients, as I said, who became self-proclaimed prescribers and they discontinue? Oh, there is written immunosuppression. How can I use it? What is your advice and how do you counsel them?
See, I think we need to first tell the patient that, okay, COVID is a very fluid situation. We are learning the disease daily, but we need to also make them understand whatever disease the patient has, that particular disease has a lot of challenges. So if you stop all the medicine without knowing the consequences, it can also be an tricky issue. And you remember, see, what else we can give to the patient of psoriasis? phototherapy, that is even not getting done during the COVID treatment. So we are actually do not have any treatment option for COVID COVID era psoriasis patient, which is a moderate to severe plaque psoriasis. We need to talk to the patient, get him the platform, and also acknowledge their fear. Fear is real. Fear is of course real. COVID fear is real. So we need to acknowledge their fear, and we need to discuss the pros and cons. We need to give them the most recent literature, what is suggesting the use of what kind of biologics or cyclosporine, and elevate them. Most of the times, if it's a young and non-diabetic and healthy, otherwise no comorbid patients, we can talk them inside, keeping them in psoriasis treatment. But of course, there are patients who are very limited amount of psoriasis and patients who are old, patient who has other comorbidities. Even we will be thinking about taking the immunosuppression of the patient because of the COVID situation.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll come to Dr. Kalyani for his words. Sir, what does the science say? With the limited knowledge of last 4 months, what is the indication of biologicals in patients on new initiations, on retention, and what is your perspective on this?
In fact, I would say that, as he said, biologics are relatively safer in psoriasis vis-a-vis methotrexate or cyclosporine, which cause a diffuse generalized immunosuppression. Biologics only block one particular pathway, which is not so important in the management of COVID. In fact, sometimes they say some of the biologics theoretically might be beneficial. So we tell them that if they need it, otherwise they have to take it. And in fact, it may be a good idea to treat the condition so that they don't suffer from a severe psoriasis. So if they are on the treatment, they should continue unless if they develop COVID, or unless there's a family member who develops COVID, or if they're doctors who are at the COVID front as COVID warriors. Then you might have a situation where you might have to take them off temporarily. We may also initiate patients who need it for the first time. The only biologic which is under the question mark is what we used to use routinely nowadays for autoimmune bullous diseases like pemphigus and pemphigoid. We used to use rituximab, which causes a suppression of the immunoglobulin synthesis, which is supposed to be important for managing COVID cases or developing antibodies. And this immunosuppression, because of one infusion, one course of rituximab, can last for as long as 6 to 12 months. So that's one biologic where we may be stressed out to start it. And if we start that biologic, then we tell the patients to be under self-quarantine and not to interact with the society and not to pick up the infection. Otherwise, I think... Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I think what I have understood is that only high-risk people is where you would be cautious, and rest, it can be beneficial also. But sir, please, sir.
Yeah, please.
Sir, have you ever, there is another factor, and tell me if I'm correct in that these biologicals are expensive than other drugs, maybe a methotrexate or any other thing. And with the salaries cut down, with the job losses, with people now conserving money, do you think there has been a fraction of population who was discontinued only because of the pricing and the money they have to spend on it?
Certainly. In India, because most of these are given on OPD basis and insurance does not cover them, it was out of pocket expense, and only a fraction of our patients who needed could afford it. Now that fraction has gone down. Not uncommonly, I come across people who say that they know it was working very well and they would love to continue, but they have no money to buy it and they have to run a house, and then I have no answer. So I agree with you. There are people who are going off it, some of them, though they know that it improves the quality of life, but they can't afford it anymore because the money is needed to run the house.
Absolutely, sir. To sum it up, what I've understood is that people should not discontinue their drugs on their own. If something has to be done, they should talk to a doctor. Biologicals are quite safe in low-risk patients. And for a high risk, please again consult your doctor. Dr. Day, you want to add something?
Just one myth about this high cost of biologics. It's not that always is high cost. If you take care of the every situation. Recently, we just got one publication got accepted. It will be coming in India Journal of Dermatology very shortly. That is a randomized control trial in rituximab of pemphigus versus BCP, which is like commonly done non-biologic treatment for pemphigus. So, and we showed the improvement of rituximab over DCB. That is one part of the data. But we also compare between the cost factor. Now the patient having disease morbidity for so long, patient developing diabetes and related treatment for that, all those extra issues we have taken care. How many times we are getting admitted in a year? So they kind of trace their life for about 2 years and actually calculate their cost vis-a-vis the cost of the drug itself. And it's just showing that it is not rituximab treatment may not be expensive over the conventional treatment if you take care of that.
Yes, Dr. Soma, you want to add to it?
Yeah. So what has happened is in such cases, like I agree that biologicals are very expensive. If one of my patient is in a stable condition because he has been in biological for pretty long time, and during this lockdown period, because his salary is record, he's a working class of patient. So what I did was I reduced the dose. I reduced the dose because the patient was stable on the disease. So I told him that during this period, we can look at a cut down on the dosage, and that way the cost gets lesser, and we can see till the time we can, par over this COVID situation. Probably once the COVID situation improves, his work starts complete in a full-fledged manner, we can again go back to the full dosage till the time if he doesn't have any increase in his initial disease, if it is under control.
Thank you. So moving away from biologicals, I'll come back to you, only Dr. Sarkar. Tell me how your OPD, your procedures, cosmetology, aesthetics have changed during the COVID times.
Yeah, so we have seen the maximum drop in the procedures, especially for higher major procedures like body contouring procedures, or when it comes to injectables, especially. Our patients have been really scared. They don't want to come out of the houses. That's one. Secondly, also that these are something which is not need of the hour. Like these were normally considered as the luxury treatment. So only one service which has been people wanting to come for it is the laser hair reduction. Because the times where your all salons are closed, obviously it started recently, but all this time the salons were closed. So all the facial hair patient who had these issues, they were wanting to come to me. And obviously they were asking us a lot of questions about how are we sanitizing our clinic? Are we following the protocols? Are we wearing the PPE kits? Are we taking temperatures? Every norms are being taken. Where is my staff coming from? How are they coming? All these things have been answered to them. But yes, the other procedures have taken a seat back. I have procedures only like radiocautery in cases of, verruca vulgaris. I did see few patients coming to me for that, especially kids. I do not know what was the reason for it, but during this time I saw 2 kids having warts. They came to me, but apart from that, only LHR was people wanted to come. Rest, everything else has taken a back seat. Like they want to come, but they said we will come after a certain period of time, probably when the situation gets a little better.
And how has the OPD changed for a patient who walks into your center now?
So now we don't have any walk-in patients anymore. What we do is we have also on all our social media handles and everywhere possibly told them to take a prior appointment and come possibly alone if the patient by itself is an adult. If it is a minor patient, and obviously somebody has to accompany, but if it's an adult patient, we emphasize please come alone, follow all the protocols, wear your gloves, wear your mask. Once they come in, we check the temperature, we sanitize them. So it's only one patient at a time. We don't entertain more than that. So we keep a gap of at least 10-20 minutes before the other patient walks in, and it is strictly on appointments.
And are you testing them, telling them that you need to be tested before they come in?
As in COVID testing? See, the problem is like you cannot tell this to a patient that they have to compulsory go for a COVID testing, which you cannot. As in, obviously, we want them to do it. We normally ask the medical history, which area are they coming, how are they traveling, or is there been any COVID exposure in and around, or any family members. These things we are taking as a history. But if you tell a patient that you have to do, because I hope you know that the nasal swabs are taken and it's not a very pleasant feeling of giving a nasal swab for COVID testing. So if the patient doesn't have any signs and symptoms, and if you're going to tell, the patient would tell you that what if I get a COVID infection after going there? So all these things have to be kept in mind. That's what I feel.
Yes, sir. I was coming to you for this.
Yeah, it's very impractical and it should not be advised. We should only screen them for fever and upper respiratory symptoms. If you do it, then you should do it for each follow-up. That will be absurd. And there's a 66% sensitivity. You will still miss patients who will come and infect you. And instead of that, we tell them to sanitize before they enter the room, before they enter the clinic. They wear a mask. We maintain social distancing and we sanitize the clinics and we take care for ourselves.
When you say, sir, that you take care for yourself,
Yeah.
should I mean that every patient is being managed with a PP kit?
No, actually the only PP, because I'll tell you, the American Academy of Dermatology, we are not treating COVID patients. So we should only be sure that the surfaces are clean, that we wear a N95 mask, we don't touch our face, and we sanitize our hands, and wherever needed, we wear a face shield when we go close to the patient or see the oral mucosa, when the patient has to remove the mask temporarily, and we wear gloves. That's all we do. And I've been doing it since, touch wood, since the last 2 months and 3 weeks in my clinic. And I'm 64 years.
Great, sir. God
Yeah.
bless you. I hope that the good job you are doing should not come in the way of the COVID. But, sir, what has been the fate of acute emergencies in skin ailments during the COVID times? We see that the hospitals are full of COVID patients. Even emergencies like heart attacks and strokes are not being managed. What is the fate of the acute skin emergencies in these times?
I agree with you. Whenever we had to give a patient an infusion and admit, or treat a patient of Stevens-Johnson syndrome, it becomes a real challenge to find a place which does not treat COVID cases. You have to find a non-COVID hospital and motivate the patient to agree to a hospitalization. Patients are mortally scared of for their life, you know. So I have had a patient who needed rituximab, and I was following RA protocol in which patient needs to take 2 infusions 15 days apart, just a day care from morning till evening. First time patient searched the nursing home, which patient thought was safe, and we admitted the patient, and the doctor who was running the show told me that one day earlier there was a COVID patient and he has not told this patient about it.
So today
then-
you wanted, yeah.
Next
Please,
day,
carry
after
on.
2 weeks, he found another hospital. He said, now I want to go to so-and-so hospital, nowhere else. And I had to agree, and I had to go and see the patient there. So non-COVID cases are taking a beating nowadays. Actually, when they need hospitalization, it suffered.
Dr. Day, you want to add to this?
Just I add another experience of mine. Just day before yesterday, there's a patient I suspect of DRESS. DRESS is a drug reaction which comes with eosinophilic and systemic symptoms. And the patient was taking some antipsychotic medicines. The patient developed DRESS kind of features. So this patient has erythema all over the body, and then patient has developed pedal edema, signs of congestive cardiac failure. I found that the albumin is low. So everything is like pretty emergency for the patient. We need to get them under some medical hospital or something like that. But the patient party was completely adamant that they're not going to admit the patient. It's such a difficult scenario for us also to convince the patient to get admitted for a dermatological condition. They think it's a dermatological condition. Problem is all dermatological condition is not only skin deep. There are so many systemic changes are going on. So I showed them that creatinine level has gone up and everything is going bad, and the person's father needs admission. They just didn't want to get it admitted. I don't know what the patient's fate will be, but it's a very difficult scenario for sure.
So just to lighten our audience and our panelists also, sir, during these days, and I'll come to you to ask you, home healthcare has literally played a very pivotal role. We have been managing patients on home infusions, on home chemotherapies, on home ICUs, on home isolation, even patients who needed oxygen and all. And that all has proven to be very, very safe because the patients are, as you said, too much psyched out to go into a hospital, right? So that is something which we are already doing across the country, and we have been giving MABs and other biological infusions. So with our rich experience and clinical outcomes over the last so many years, we have found a big surge in demand of all these things during this time. I'll also inform you that in the last, sir, I'm coming to you.
Yeah.
And in the last half an hour or so, we have reached to more than 4,000 people with more than 1,000 views of this video. And at any given point of time, 100 people have been viewing us on Zoom and Facebook. Come back to you, Dr. Taliani, for your views on home treatments in these elements where people don't want to go to nursing home.
I appreciate what you've been doing, and it may change the way medicine will be practiced in future, even after COVID scare gets over. It will change the way the medicines will be practiced in India and the world. The only fear nowadays is that people who go there to start the infusion are in PPE. And when the neighbors see it, they feel that there's a COVID patient in the house, and those people face a lot of discrimination. How do you fight that? I'm asking you a question.
No, sir. So again, there we also found that as a issue, sir. So what we are doing is that nobody mandates that you have to wear the PP outside the patient's home. It's totally the patient privacy which needs to be protected and respected. Even we do a lot of home sample collection for COVID testing, and there also we mandate that this PP should be worn once you are inside the patient's home, should be removed and put into the disposable bag before you come out. So there are various ways to protect patient privacy and not let that discrimination happen. But what I was you have put a reverse question to me. What I wanted to ask you that do you think that the problems which you are facing can be at times with the I would say with the appropriate patient selection be managed at home?
For sure, I'm going to take help of Arpita more often nowadays, and I'm sure I'm going to manage many of these cases at home.
Thank you, sir.
That's a very useful information you're going to the society at large.
Thank you, sir. We are trying to do a lot of work during the COVID times and trying to save as many lives as possible. My next question is to Dr. Soma. Dr. Soma, now let's come to the new things which have emerged during the COVID times. As you said, sir said acne and then neurodermatitis and then antifungal. We all said people are stressed, they're losing jobs, children are at home, the home has become school and office, the stress has increased. What are your advices for people, first to prevent all this, and second, if they get, what they should do?
So first thing is like the people should follow their routine skincare, what they are normally doing during whatever situation we are. So basically like washing your hands, moisturizing them on timely basis, or if you're using any particular sunscreen, face washes, moisturizers for your face as well, you have to continue in doing that. Do not change any of your regime until and unless if you feel that these are not working with a doctor consult, then you change them accordingly. But apart from that, you are not supposed to do it. Now, there are a lot of times what we have seen because of extreme usage of sanitizers and the washing of hands, people have come with a lot of hand dermatitis. So in these cases, obviously, the number of, as in application types of moisturizers has been increased, and we have told them that you have to take care of them, keep on moisturizing them, use as much as less sanitizer, try to wash less as much as possible if not required. That is something what we have done. But yes, the other thing what I've seen is obviously aggravation. Now, when there is an aggravation of certain dermatitis issue or an acne issue or a stress related issue, we have also tried to counsel them. So this is something what I feel as a doctor nowadays, apart from medications, the other thing we doctors have to invest in lot of counseling, as in mentally, psychologically, which helps the patient to be relieved, because most of the time they're very anxious. And I've seen that you have to cajole them by telling them, okay, you have to form some form of routine, have little exercise routine, eat well. Because I've also seen during these time, people are doing binge eating, late night movies, waited till watching Netflix till late morning, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, having junk food. And all these things have also started during this period of time. So normally I tell them, please stick to your routine, what you used to in these time, do not change them and follow these healthy routines and try to include certain things, habits, which would also help you to keep your skin stress free. That is what we have.
And Dr. Abhishek Dey, what is your advice to the husbands who are sweating in Jhadu Pocha? How should they avoid it?
They should keep their wife happy. That's the most important challenge. I think wives are happy in general, like husbands are staying at home. So that's a nice thing. But so much that disagree.
No.
Okay.
I completely disagree.
Anyway, see, there are few things we need to understand that a lot of people who are staying home also, they're actually not working. They are working till now. Right? They are working from home. They are constantly in the digital media. Use of digital media has really gone up. Like we have been using this kind of platforms, and even this digital media is damaging the skin. So constant use of digital media is damaging the skin and eyes. So we need to be careful. We need to take a lot of drink a lot of water. We need to use a sunscreen barrier. I say even inside the home you should be using a sunscreen. You should have a good cleansing rituals. A lot of people are not doing exercises still because they are in home and they are not going out. So, and possibly the gyms are closed, but they have to find out some way to have an exercise regime during the, and in fact, if I talk about myself, I lost 3.8 kg in the last 3 months So that's good thing for me. So even in this lockdown period, you can lose weight. Soma agreeing with me.
Yes, absolutely. I've done the same. I've lost weight.
That's good. That's good. So that's what you can do. Should have the healthy regimen. Now there's a better chance. We all have been complaining that we never had the time. Now you have the time. You have a better regimen now. So read all the books what I've been reading, rather than watching a lot of television and junks and other things, and damaging your skin and eyes both, and also having a restlessness because of all the negativity surrounding you. Read books. Enjoy with families. This is what you have been complaining for years. काश मेरे पास टाइम होता, वक्त होता, नहीं आपके पास वक्त दिया है तो यूज करो उसको. So you enjoy with your family, enjoy reading books, have happiness. Happiness in mind always glows inside your skin. So that what's something is all important. And husbands are putting on weight. So why should we keeping and watch, and they should use them in jharu pochas for sure.
And how do so you have spoken about the mental stress, you have spoken about the good things which lockdown has brought, you have spoken down that please continue with your skincare, do not discontinue your medications. But again, fungal issues, it is more of sweating, moisturizer, overexposure to water. How do you prevent those, Dr. Day?
No, first of all, overutilization of sanitizers is causing a lot of damage. Okay, that we need to sanitize. But my advice is to the people who are always been like, if you inside the home, when you have a water supply and you have soap, then use a gentle cleanser to wash off your hand. Try to have constant use of sanitizers. Sanitizer for when you are traveling out, you do not have water sources, then you use a sanitizer. While choosing a sanitizer, you have to be a little careful. See whether it's a WHO formula, whether it's the sanitizer and WHO formula. Try to buy it from a reputed brands. Also see whether there's a moisturizing element added to it. Beyond that, I'm always saying, okay, even if you are using a sanitizer, make sure you constantly use a moisturizer along with that. If you're carrying a sanitizer, you also carry a moisturizer. Like in my car, there's a sanitizer, there's a moisturizer. Both are put together. So I use the sanitizer, then I use the moisturizer on top, because you have to understand this high concentration of alcohol takes the oil out of your skin. It makes your hand very dry and makes you prone to not only from eczema but also for candidiasis. Both can happen. So constant moisturizing can help you over the things. We are seeing a lot of female who's suffering from something called cumulative insult dermatitis, also known as house webs eczema. This happens when because of constant use of soaps and detergent, you develop this kind of problem. Only using a moisturizer can solve this problem. So keep on using a moisturizer, be gentle with your skin, and that's my message here.
Dr. Telyani, two questions to you, sir, before we head to the last 10 minutes. Sir, one, initially we used to say that the kids, when they go to the schools, they get infections. They get these skin infections and they bring them home. For the last 4 months, kids are not going to school. What has been the trend of skin ailments with the kids? Is there something which the kids really need to take care of, or the parents need to take care of, that the kids do not get skin ailments?
Well, I think kids have been more or less safe, except that if there was a communicable disease affecting the parents, that has gone on to the kids more commonly nowadays. More than that, the kids are a bit unhappy about the fact that they cannot go out and play, they cannot meet their friends, they can't celebrate the birthdays the way they used to celebrate earlier. And good thing is that they don't have to get up on time. The good thing is that they don't have to wear a uniform and take a bath and be well groomed. One of the kids told me that I only have to wear a tie. Below that, if I'm wearing a shorts or something, that my teacher does not know. So there are good and bad things for the kids.
Right, sir. My second question to you is, sir, that I've seen many people. So as Dr. Day said about sanitizers, there are many people are using disinfectants, right? 1% sodium hypochlorite or many other products, but they don't know how that disinfectant is affecting their skin. So what has been the scenario there? Because I haven't seen many people using those nitrile gloves or something. What are the recommendations? How do you save your skin from those disinfectants?
And many of those nitrile gloves are not easily available. There's a shortage.
Absolutely.
And when they wear it for a long time, the maceration inside also causes damage. Sometimes they get damaged because of the nitrile or the rubber, the PVC. So they have to be careful, and they have to use those disinfectants in proper dilution. Sometimes they use in very high concentrations. And of course, they have to protect their hand and their faces for the exposed parts of the body. And regarding the infections, fungal infections, when they work, they should wear cottons, which should be comfort fit cottons. women should use exhaust fan in the kitchen. The moment you finish your work, you should change into something dry. And if you feel it will not dry during the monsoons, they can use a hair dryer at the room temperature mode, hold it at some distance and blow it in the body folds for a moment. And that will keep those body folds dry and cool. And that's a very practical advice to some of them.
Some very, very useful tips, sir. What is your advice for diabetics who are much prone to these fungal infections or other skin disorders?
Yeah, because they don't do any exercise and they're at home, so they're tempted to eat. So I tell them to be very strict about the diet. And since I'm fit, they have to listen to me seriously. They have to be very, it's easier to control your diet than to exercise. To give an example, if you like a sandwich and you had one sandwich extra, you have to run 1 kilometer on the treadmill to burn those calories.
True.
So it's easier to eat less than to exercise.
Very true.
Right, sir. Right.
Yeah.
So again, maintain your sugars,
So
maintain your
just to add to it, just a 16 gram of dairy milk chocolates gives you about, I think, 60 kilocalorie, and you need to run for about 1 to 1.5 kilometer to burn that much of calorie. So it's much difficult to burn the calorie than eat less.
So now the advice of a cardiologist, physician, dermatologist, everybody is giving the same advice, that maintain your lifestyle, maintain your exercise, your eating habits, and your mental stress.
That's called that's a holistic approach. You have to have a holistic. You have to treat the human being, not only skin in isolation.
Absolutely, sir.
Yeah.
So we have reached out to more than 6,000 people, sir, as of now. It has been a fantastic last 1 hour. My last question to Dr. Taliani, sir, is that, sir, do you think that COVID has, on a general, as you said, holistically, has increased the awareness about health? People have become more conscious about health. Health has got a priority even on the government agenda now. What has been the status of awareness of skin disorders during the COVID times?
Well, I feel that we have focused more on the disease dermatology because I have been in practice for more than 3.5 decades. I started with disease dermatology and saw a shift soon gradually from disease to desired dermatology. So there would be people who will come and say, I'm healthy, but just tell me, how can I make my skin fairer? How can I look younger? So tell me what you can do to make me look more attractive. So we have gone back to disease dermatology, which is what we were initially trained to do. So that's one thing. And unfortunately, dermatology is still one of the, also RANs. Government is focusing on hospitals, but I think we have to make them aware that healthy skin is as important as a healthy body. So I'm sure people are more conscious about their health. They'll become more conscious towards the preventive aspects, and whatever steps we are taking should not be forgotten the moment this fever gets over, and we should learn some things for good so that a lot of preventable disease can be avoided, and you can focus more on how to maintain, and you can focus more on things like psoriasis, chronic diseases, which we were not able to pay so much attention to those.
I've just got a question, sir. So this is now the last question. We knew that HIV had many skin manifestations, right? Corona, you mentioned that there was a rash. What do you see? Will Corona also come up with many skin manifestations?
Maybe we will learn as we are on the learning curve. So you can have rashes in children which happen on the hands and digits, which are called the COVID hands or COVID fingers, COVID digits. Then you can have rash which mimics the chickenpox rash. You can have rash involving the entire body like measles. So you have to keep your index of suspicion, and when you feel that it fits into, sometimes it may give you signals of how to pick up an infection early. And some of the rashes may actually tell you about whether the disease will be severe or mild. For example, the COVID hands or COVID digits is associated with a mild infection. Whereas you see vesicles like chickenpox, it's a more aggressive disease. So you can also give patients and the treating physician clues about how closely this patient should be observed.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
I think that was a very, very interesting and engaging session. At the end, we have reached out to more than 6,500 people, more than 2,000 views. At any given point of time, we had 100 people. And as Dr. Taliani said, more and more people want to be treated at home. And the acceptance of home healthcare has become much, much better now, to the extent that now in all the COVID policies, all insurances are mandated to cover home health care after 10th of July. So the world is changing. The world is changing for good. Telemedicine has its own limitations. All of you said that biologicals are safe. People should not take their own decisions, but still they are constrained by the financial things. So my heartfelt thanks to all the three panelists and all my audience who was here. Next week, we'll come back with another series of these webinars. Thank you so much.